We have options and we have good matchups for quarterback and tight end this week. Going to start off tier one at quarterback. We're going to go Hurts, Mahomes, Allen as the top three guys. And really, there's not too much to discuss. We will go Jalen Hurts number one, given the great matchup against Washington. Even though, funny enough, while Josh Allen has been maybe disappointing from a real life perspective this year, from a fantasy football perspective, dependent on your scoring, he is actually the number one quarterback in fantasy at the moment. Now, with that being said, you are looking at a player that does have a toughish matchup going up against Tampa on Thursday. We know these Thursday night games are going to be a little bit weirder overall. So we still will have Hurts and Mahomes ahead of him, especially with the great matchups for both quarterbacks. And we are going to be sneaking in our guy here, Lamar Jackson, into tier one. I've wanted to do it all year. Like I said, this was the player we spent the most money on in underdog drafts this season. Really happy to see what we've had from Lamar. To be fair, he hasn't averaged the same as those top three guys, but it is a beautiful matchup going up against the Cardinals, where you do currently have Las Vegas sportsbooks giving them a 26.5 point team total. And yeah, that's actually more than what you have with like the Bills and Josh Allen. Now, before we move on from this tier one, I want to remind you, you are going to have that special pick 'em on Underdog this week. Doesn't matter if you use code FLOCK 2 years ago, last year, yesterday, today, or tomorrow. You are going to be getting that Amon-Ra St. Brown special pick 'em on Monday night. But also, if you are new to Underdog Fantasy, you're going to be getting an additional Josh Allen special pick 'em more than less than half a total yard. And I wanted to do something fun. I wanted to go through and make a pick 'em slip for y'all and kind of go with a long shot here. We're going to be taking Josh Allen or Amon-Ra St. Brown, whatever your special pick 'em is this week, more than half a total yard. We're going to be going Jordan Love, fewer than 231.5 passing yards. Christian Watson, fewer than 58.5 receiving yards. That way we get that nice correlation in there. And I'm got to take my guy Bijan Robinson, even though he had the headache last week throwing off his averages. We're going to be getting him with more than 80.5 total yards this week. And honestly, wouldn't mind the Bijan Robinson more than 48.5 rushing yards. But if we're going to take that 4 pick'em slip, one of those being the special pick'ems, I'm going to go $10 to win $100 there on Underdog. And of course, if you haven't already, you can find that link to Underdog in the description in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, you are going to get a 100% deposit match, plus those special pick'ems and our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers. Make sure you take advantage of that. But dropping down to that next tier, we are going to go Justin Herbert at 5, going up against the Chicago Bears. Right now, the Chargers actually have an implied team total of 27 points. That's higher than Philadelphia. That's higher than Buffalo. That is higher than Arizona. The one issue that you have is obviously Herbert's not going to have the same rushing upside as those other quarterbacks, which is why he'll be down here. And yeah, Herbert's maybe been a little bit disappointing so far this year, but ultimately at the end of the day, he's still averaging 21.5 points per game. Now, Tua will be our next quarterback. Tua actually has the highest implied team total of any team this week, going up against the New England Patriots. The concern that you have here is, while Miami may be at the very top of the NFL in scoring, we know this is a team that's going to run the ball. That's how they are number one in the NFL in points scored at the moment. However, Tua is only averaging about 19.5 points per game, which is lower than those first 5 guys. Now, Jared Goff will be our next quarterback. Jared Goff has an applied team total over 27 points as well, going up against the Raiders. I understand they got boat raced against the Ravens last week, and this shows how stupid I am. I was coming out here going, oh my gosh, the Ravens are 3-point favorites over the Lions. Am I missing something? Yeah, I'm missing that. Vegas always knows more than we do. Of course they do. And looking at Jared Goff here, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have Laporta, you have Jameson Williams, all good to go and healthy. Very nice matchup. Vegas is telling us this offense is going to score a zillion points. I think we got to trust them. Now, dropping down to this next tier, this is where things get a little bit murkier. And this is where, honestly, the rankings become more important, so we had to think a little bit more about these. I'm going to go CJ Stroud at 8. I know this is very aggressive with CJ Stroud, but if you actually look at his points per game so far this season, he's actually higher than any other quarterback in this tier, not named Brock Purdy or Kirk Cousins. He has a great matchup going up against Carolina, where we've seen Carolina's defense just disappoint all season now. So I'm going to take Stroud, even if he doesn't have the name appeal like Trevor Lawrence just yet. Regardless of what you think about the Lawrence matchup against Pittsburgh, he still has averaged about 15.5 points per game, which is 1.5 or almost 2 points less than CJ Stroud so far this season. Plus, if you are looking at Las Vegas sportsbooks, you actually have CJ Stroud with an applied team total of 23.5 points in comparison to the Jacksonville Jaguars at 22.5 points. So for those reasons, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Stroud over Lawrence, where honestly, it's kind of crazy, right? Because if you were to ask me rest of season who I prefer, I still probably prefer Lawrence, but these guys are damn close. Then we're going to go Brock Purdy at 10. With Brock Purdy, he actually has the highest implied team total of any quarterback in this tier, not named Dak Prescott. The issue is with Purdy, I mean, you're expecting them to go out there and effectively run the ball, right? There are three things guaranteed in life. You have death, taxes, and Christian McCaffrey taking a rushing touchdown. So even if we look at the implied team total, obviously a lot of those points are going to CMC. Now, dropping down to our next quarterback, we will have Kirk Cousins. With Cousins, I want to have him much higher than this, right? He has been by far and away the best quarterback in this tier. He's actually the quarterback 7 so far this season from a points per game perspective. Going up against Green Bay, however, he is sitting here with an implied team total of only 22 points, while the majority of this is going to go through the air. And honestly, we will move him ahead of Brock Purdy. We do need to be realistic in that at the end of the day, this is a situation in which you have no Justin Jefferson, even if we have the Jordan Addison breakout. I think we have to just look at Cousins as a quarterback missing his top weapon. That's not going to run the ball here either. Now, Dak Prescott will be our next quarterback at 12. Dak Prescott actually has the highest implied team total of any quarterback in this tier this week, going up against the Rams with almost a 26-point implied team total. However, Dak Prescott at the same time has only averaged 14.5 points per game so far this season, which is only ahead of our next quarterback in Joe Burrow. With Burrow, I wanted to have him much higher than this, right? The issue is not only that he's only averaged 12 points per game, that's not the end of the world. I mean, ultimately, at the end of the day, he was dealing with that injury earlier on in the season. I think coming out of the bye week, we should assume that he's a little bit healthier. And I think we want to go out there and we actually want to be a little more aggressive with Burrow. But you're going up against San Francisco, where this is one of, if not the toughest defenses in the NFL. I understand, yeah, they maybe been struggling over the past 2 weeks, but still. And Vegas is telling us the Cincinnati Bengals are only going to score about 19.5 points. That's about 6 points less than what we have with the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. So I want to be long-term focused in on this Cincinnati Bengals offense. I still think that Burrow's interesting. I still think that T. Higgins is interesting as well as a buy low candidate. This just may be a toughish week given the matchup and what projections currently are saying. Now, our next here will be Matthew Stafford leading us off. Stafford also has a very low implied team total, only at 19.25 points. I want to be higher on Stafford just given the fact that, hell, you have a healthy Kupp, you have a healthy Puka. I think this passing offense should be good. It's just a very tough matchup going up against Dallas. Russell Wilson will be our next quarterback. I mean, with Russ, I don't know. You're going up against KC, so you're going to have to throw the ball consistently in the second half. You have some rushing upside. I just really have no interest in Russell Wilson. Maybe we even see a Judy trade this week. We'll see. Then Jordan Love will be our next quarterback. Jordan Love definitely gave us that head fake this season where I had no idea what he was going to be coming into the year, but he looked good at the beginning of the season. I was like, oh my gosh, is Jordan Love good? Are we going to print with Christian Watson everywhere we drafted him? And I'm willing to say, yeah, probably not. He's probably not good. I mean, based on what we have seen, they have an applied team total of 21 points. Jordan Love is averaging about 19 points per game. So if you wanted to go through, and honestly, we will move him ahead of Russell Wilson. There's no reason not to. He's been better this season. Vegas is projecting his offense to be better as well. We'll have Jordan Love at 15. Gardner Minshew will be our quarterback at 17. With Minshew, it's kind of giving me Jameis vibes 2019 time period, right? Where you're going to go out there and yes, you are probably not a great real life quarterback. You're probably going to lose because you're going to turn the ball over. But you're going to be that DGAF quarterback where you're going to have a ton of passing volume. You're going to be okay in fantasy given your passing volume, and you're going to support some top wide receivers at the same time. The matchup against New Orleans is kind of whatever, but I mean, I kind of want to just roll with Minshew for the fun of it. Now, Sam Howell does have a tough matchup going up against Philadelphia. Sam Howell has been a lot better than some of these other quarterbacks in this range so far this season. Just really not much interest. Geno Smith is a quarterback that I think will be better than this going forward. He's actually only averaged about 14 points per game, but I think he will be better. Just this is not the week to make that bet because you are going up against one of the best defenses in the NFL with Cleveland. And then Derek Carr will be our last quarterback here. Derek Carr, you kind of know what you're going to get. You're going to get 1 million targets to Alvin Kamara, and he probably will have 50 passing yards you'll have 50 passing attempts for 150 passing yards, and you'll be crying if you decided to start this guy. Now, let's go over to the tight end rankings. I don't want to waste your time. The top three have been the same all season now. We will have Kelsey, Andrews, Hawkinson. All these guys are great. If you're having to sit here and decide, oh, who do I start out of these three guys? That means you need to go through and sell one of them, because if you have two of them, then my man, what are we doing? We don't want to be flexing one. Let's go send Hawkinson. Let's go send Andrews, and a deal to get an elite level receiver if you also have Kelsey. Now, dropping down to a tier where it begins to matter, we are going to have Sam Laporta at 4. I mean, I'm very consistent with our Sam Laporta ranking here, right? I mean, he was that sell-high guy for us a few weeks back when we had everybody in our live streams telling us that you needed to take him over Mark Andrews, that you needed to take him over TJ Hawkinson. Thought it was crazy then. I still think it's crazy now. But still, like we were saying then, he's the tight end 4. I mean, way better than I thought he was going to be coming into the season. Just incredible that a rookie tight end could be here. Going back to what we were talking about earlier with Jared Goff, Vegas sportsbooks are telling us that this should be a very good offense this next week against the Raiders. George Kittle will be our next tight end at 5. Kittle may fall down these rankings. I am making these rankings, however, with the assumption that we are probably not going to be working with Deebo Samuel this week. So if we have no Deebo Samuel, I think that we want to go through and we want to aggressively play Kittle. However, if Deebo does play, then at that point, obviously we're moving Kittle down. Dallas Goedert will be our next tight end. I mean, Goddard kind of funny in a way in that last week we said, oh, okay, Darren Waller going up against Washington. He's a little more of a receiver than he is a blocking tight end. We know Washington has a horrendous secondary. Do we bump him up and go out there and chase the defense that's going to be soft against the pass? Maybe make the same argument with Dallas Goedert. Full transparency, I'm incredibly biased. I mean, this is someone that I have in an absurd amount of underdog leagues. Now, Evan Ingram will be our next tight end. Evan Ingram actually sitting there right in line with Dallas Goedert at 10.8 points per game. The matchup against Pittsburgh, I think you can be excited about. I'm just more so going to be seeing what we're going to get with Zay Jones. And that if Zay Jones does play this week, I think that you are going to see a step backwards for Ingram. Then Darren Waller will be our next guy going up against the Jets. Very tough matchup. I understand Waller was pretty good this past week, and Waller actually is ahead of Kittle, ahead of Goddard, and ahead of Evan Ingram in points per game so far this season. The issue is just a really tough matchup going up against the Jets. Now, dropping down to our next tier, someone that I did not draft a lot of because typically I'm avoiding rookie tight ends. Dalton Kincaid is ready to blow the hell up, ladies and gentlemen. With Dalton Kincaid, this is a player that has shown flashes so far this season, but the issue is you've had him splitting this room with Dawson Knox. But now that you no longer have Dawson Knox with the wrist surgery, Dalton Kincaid is a locked and loaded starter, someone that I for sure want to go through and get in our lineup for Thursday night. Like if we're going to look at Underdog real quick and their pick'ems, you're going to see that they have Dalton Kincaid currently almost at 42 receiving yards. Whereas if you're going to be looking at some of the other tight ends that you have here, I mean, you're looking at players like Evan Ingram. You're looking at players like Darren Waller right in the same line. So you can make an argument that we should be even higher on Dalton Kincaid right now, given the fact that he's in the much better offense that has more touchdown upside. Now, Dalton Schultz will be our next tight end. Drafted a lot of Dalton Schultz as well this year. I will say he's probably going to fall back down to earth just a bit. He's averaged 10.1 points per game, which is much more than anybody else in this tier. But a lot of this has been fueled off of touchdown volume, right? And we know touchdowns are going to be extremely volatile from week to week perspective, and it will be difficult to assume that's just guaranteed going forward. Now, Kyle Pitts will be our next guy. And if we are looking at Kyle Pitts, a tight end that has made some highlight grabs, that has looked good at times, the issue is, similar to what you were looking at with Dalton Kincaid earlier in the year, if you're splitting the tight end position with someone else, you simply can't be interesting, especially if you're in a horrendous passing offense. The matchup against Tennessee is nice, but it's a bad offense. Jonnu Smith clearly has a nice role, so it's hard to get too excited. Now, Cole Kmet will be our next guy at 12. With Kmet going up against the Chargers, I mean, we said this last week. I'll say it again. I do not think that Justin Fields being out negatively impacts either Cole Kmet or DJ Moore too much, just given the fact that I'm not really excited about either one of these guys for their quarterback play. I'm excited about them for their talent profiles, and Justin Fields was a quarterback that before the injury through his career has averaged 160 passing yards per game. I don't think the backup quarterback is going to do that much worse from a passing volume perspective. Now, David Njoku will be our next guy. With Njoku, has been really disappointing Yeah, PJ Walker as well. I mean, he did have a considerable amount of target volume last week. Keep in mind, very high scoring game. I just want to assume that as we get further removed from his burn incident, that hopefully he gets healthier and hopefully he gets better. Obviously, I have no idea. I'm not, well-versed. I don't have a ton of experience in the recovery process for players when they get burned in a house. I don't know. Jake Ferguson will be our next guy. With Ferguson, should be in a very high-scoring offense, gets considerable amount of target volume as well. To be honest with you, if you wanted to have Ferguson over Njoku, I'm not going to fault you. And then Logan Thomas at 15 actually has been better than these other guys from a points per game perspective at 9.5. I'm just not a big-time believer in Washington. And at the same time, it is a tougher matchup going up against Philly as well. Now, dropping down to our next tier, these are the long shots. Jonnu Smith, Tyler Higbee, Trey McBride, and Michael Mayer. If you are looking at Higbee, this is a tight end that has a very tough matchup and has fallen off the cliff since we had the return of Kupp. He's just not getting any passing volume. Trey McBride is now appealing as we have Zach Ertz going to the IR. And Michael Mayer is someone I like the long-term upside of. Just hard to trust him right now. And if you have not done so already, make sure that you go down there, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And I want to remind y'all, my pick'em slip that we are going with this week is you're going to take that special pick'em, whether it's a Josh Allen more than less than half a total yard. That's if you are new to Underdog Fantasy, you're going to get that with promo code FLOCK. And also if you use code FLOCK, you're going to get the Amon-Ra St. Brown special pick'em more than less than half a total yard. Doesn't matter if you signed up 2 years ago, last week, today, tomorrow. We hooked you up with that, so make sure you take advantage. You're going to pair one of those with Jordan Love, Christian Watson, fewer than 231.5 passing yards, fewer than 58.5 receiving yards, getting that correlation, making that one concentrated bet that the Packers passing offense is not as good as you would assume. And then we're going to be going with Bijan Robinson, more than 80.5 total yards for the sole reason, hook 'em horns. Let's go with our guy. But yeah, that's going to be $10 to win 100, ladies and gentlemen. But I think that's all I have for you. Again, thank you so much. I really do appreciate you. I really hope you got something from this. And if you wanted to check out any of those pick'ems, promo code FLOCK, 100% deposit match, our rest of season fantasy football rankings and tiers, those special pick'ems. You can find that link in the description in the comment section. But appreciate you. Really hope we get to see you in the live stream later tonight, and really hope you have a great day.